The Forgotten Defender. Captain Sarah Donovan stood on the bridge of the HSS Dauntless, her weathered hands tracing the contours of a control panel that had been polished by 40 years of human touch. The old defense vessel hummed around her, its sounds as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. Lights blinked on consoles that had been built when humanity first established permanent colonies beyond the Sol system. The ship was old, but it was alive. Final systems check complete. Captain, reported Lieutenant Marcus Chen from his station. All green for our final journey. Donovan nodded but didn't speak. This would be the Dauntless's last voyage. A short, simple trip to the decommissioning yard, where it would be dismantled, its parts recycled into newer vessels. The thought made her chest tight. She had served on ships like this one when she was young. Modern vessels were faster, sleeker, and packed with quantum tech, but none of them felt as solid as the Dauntless. "Quite something, isn't she?" asked Chief Engineer Eliza Morgan as she joined Donovan at the command platform. 40 years old and still flying. They don't build them like this anymore. No, they don't, Donovan agreed, allowing herself a small smile. New ships fracture if you look at them wrong. Morgan laughed. That's why they gave us this job. Nobody else wanted to babysit an old ship on its last run. Donovan looked around at her skeleton crew, mostly young cadets getting their first taste of space, mixed with officers close to retirement like herself. Nobody important. Nobody the fleet would miss if things went wrong. "Captain," called Ensign Rodriguez, the communications officer. "We're picking up a distress signal from New Horizon Colony." Donovan straightened. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a man with ash on his face and fear in his eyes. Behind him, people ran back and forth as alarms blared. "This is Governor Ellis of New Horizon Colony. We are under attack. Multiple ships of unknown origin have entered our system. They've destroyed our orbital platforms and are threatening bombardment if we don't surrender our resources. We need immediate assistance." Donovan stepped forward. "Governor, this is Captain Donovan of the HSS Dauntless. We are receiving your distress call. What's your current situation?" Relief flooded the man's face, then confusion as he noted the outdated uniforms and bridge design. "Is that an Aegis-class defense vessel? Are you from a historical reenactment program?" "We're real enough," Donovan said firmly. "And we might be the only help you're going to get." "Who's attacking you?" "They call themselves the Xeraxians. 6 ships, maybe more. They've been hitting frontier colonies for months. Please, we have 15,000 civilians here." Morgan leaned close to Donovan. "New Horizon is 3 days away at our maximum sustainable speed. We're the only ship anywhere near them." Donovan nodded and turned back to the screen. "Hold tight, Governor. We're changing course. The Dauntless is coming." After the call ended, Chen approached Donovan. "Captain, with respect, the Dauntless is headed for decommissioning. We're not combat ready. We should alert Fleet Command and let them handle this. By the time Fleet Command responds, New Horizon will be ashes," Donovan replied. She tapped a command into her chair interface. "Open a channel to Space Force headquarters." The screen changed to show a sleek modern office where Admiral Vance sat at a desk that probably cost more than Donovan's yearly pension. "Captain Donovan," the Admiral said with a thin smile. "Is the museum piece giving you trouble already?" Donovan ignored the jab. "We've received a distress call from New Horizon Colony. They're under attack by Xeraxian vessels. We're the closest ship and are changing course to respond." The Admiral's smile vanished. "You will do no such thing. The Dauntless is scheduled for decommissioning. It's a floating antique, not a combat vessel. With respect, sir, there are civilians in danger. And sending in your updated Hulk won't help them," Vance cut in. "You'd just be adding your crew to the casualty list. Continue to the decommissioning yard as ordered. We'll dispatch proper ships to investigate." "Proper ships that won't arrive for a week," Donovan countered, her voice hardening. "New Horizon doesn't have that long." Vance leaned forward. "Listen carefully, Captain. That ship belongs in a scrapyard, which is exactly what will happen if you engage hostile forces. Your weapon systems are obsolete, your shields are minimal, and your engines are from the previous generation of naval technology. Sir, we can't just. That's an order, Captain. Stay on course for the decommissioning yard. The screen went dark. Silence fell over the bridge. Donovan looked at her crew, some confused, some angry, all waiting for her decision. Navigation, she said finally. Plot a course for New Horizon colony. Best possible speed. Chen stepped forward. Captain, our orders. I heard the orders. Donovan interrupted, and I'm choosing to disobey them. She looked around the bridge. I won't force any of you to come. Anyone who wants to use the escape pods before we change course has my permission. No one moved. Morgan broke into a wide grin. Well, I've been wanting to see what this old girl can really do. Donovan nodded and sat in the captain's chair, feeling the worn leather conform to her body. Set course for New Horizon, and Ms. Morgan, I suggest you look at those obsolete weapon systems. I have a feeling we might need them. As the massive ship turned in space, Donovan felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. The Dauntless had been built for defense when humanity was still establishing its presence beyond Earth. Maybe it had one more fight left in it. All hands, she announced shipwide. This is the captain. We are responding to a distress call from New Horizon Colony. This mission violates direct orders. Anyone not comfortable with that should speak now. She paused. This old ship was built to protect people. That's what we're going to do. The ship hummed louder as its ancient fusion engines powered up to maximum. Beneath the deck plating, machinery that had been dormant for years came back to life. The Dauntless moved forward, accelerating toward danger while the stars streaked by outside. They think we're just a relic, Donovan said quietly. Let's show them what history can do. The HSS Dauntless dropped out of FTL with a shudder that ran through its metallic hull. Captain Donovan gripped her chair as the view screen showed the New Horizon system. Even from this distance, she could see flashes of weapons fire around the colony planet. Scan complete, Captain, said Lieutenant Chen. 6 Xeraxian warships in orbit around New Horizon. Their design is. I've never seen anything like it. Donovan moved to his station. The ships on the screen were sleek and curved, almost beautiful in their deadly efficiency. They looked like predators next to the utilitarian human buildings of the colony. No records in our database, Chen continued. Our records are as outdated as everything else on this ship, Donovan replied. Morgan entered the bridge, her hands stained with lubricant. Captain, I've been examining our weapon systems. They're not as deactivated as Fleet Command thinks. Donovan raised an eyebrow. Explain. When they prepared the Dauntless for decommissioning, they didn't remove the weapons. That would have been too labor-intensive. They just disconnected them and sealed the ports. Morgan grinned. I've been reconnecting some things. Can we fight? Donovan asked simply. Morgan's grin faded slightly. Maybe. The main plasma cannons are still offline, but I've got the point defense systems working. And there's something else. The old mass accelerator. The what? Asked a young cadet. Kinetic weapon, Donovan explained. Fires solid tungsten projectiles at relativistic speeds. They were phased out centuries ago in favor of energy weapons. But it still works, Morgan insisted. And it doesn't need the main power grid. It has dedicated generators. Donovan nodded slowly. Get it ready. She turned to the communications officer. Hail the colony. Governor Ellis appeared on screen, looking worse than before. His face was blackened with smoke, and blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Captain Donovan, thank God you're here. The Xeraxians have destroyed our orbital platforms and bombed our main settlement. They're demanding our surrender. What do they want? Donovan asked. Our resources, our people. Ellis looked away briefly as something exploded nearby. They've been systematically hitting frontier colonies, taking what they want, and disappearing before Space Force responds. Chen moved closer to Donovan. "Captain, I'm checking the official reports. There's no mention of these attacks in any fleet communications." "That's because no one is reporting them," Ellis said bitterly. "We've sent dozens of messages. The Admiralty ignores them." Donovan's jaw tightened. "We're here now, Governor. We'll do what we can." As the communication ended, Rodriguez called out, "Captain, one of the Zeraxian ships is breaking orbit. It's heading toward us." "Battle stations," Donovan ordered. "What little we have, anyway." The bridge crew moved with purpose despite their limited options. The Dauntless might be old, but its systems were designed to be operable under combat conditions. "They're hailing us," Rodriguez reported. Donovan straightened her uniform. On screen, the alien that appeared was humanoid, but with iridescent blue skin and a crested head that reminded Donovan of Earth's ancient reptiles. It wore an ornate uniform that seemed designed more for ceremony than combat. "I am High Commander Vexlor of the Zeraxian Expansion Fleet," the alien said in synthesized English. "Identify yourself." "Captain Sarah Donovan of the Human Space Force ship Dauntless. You are attacking a human colony without provocation. Withdraw your forces immediately." Vexlor stared at Donovan for a moment, then began to laugh, a sound like wind through crystals. "Is this truly what Earth sends to defend its colonies? One ship, and such a ship?" Vexlor moved aside to show others on his bridge. They were all looking at displays showing the Dauntless, some laughing, others pointing in apparent disbelief. "Perhaps we should capture it intact," Vexlor continued, "as a museum piece to demonstrate how primitive humans truly are." Donovan kept her face expressionless. "This is your only warning, Commander. Leave this system." Vexlor's amusement vanished. "You are either brave or foolish, human. I command 6 warships of the latest design. Your relic would make a fine addition to our collection of conquered species artifacts." The screen went dark. "They're powering weapons," Chen reported. Donovan turned to Morgan. "Is that mass accelerator ready?" "Not yet. 20 minutes, maybe less." "We may not have 20 minutes." Donovan looked at the tactical display. "Helm, bring us around. Keep our strongest armor toward their ship." The first blast from the Zeraxian ship hit the Dauntless amidships. The entire vessel rocked violently, and alarms blared throughout. "Damage report," Donovan ordered. "Outer hull breached on Deck 5, reported a crewman. "Emergency bulkheads holding. Shields at 50%. One hit did that much damage?" Donovan asked, surprised. "Their weapons are designed to cut through modern shields," Chen explained, studying his readings. "But they're actually less effective against our physical armor. Our hull is 3 times thicker than contemporary vessels." Donovan nodded. "So we're old-fashioned. Let's use that to our advantage. Helm, bring us closer to New Horizons' atmosphere." The Dauntless turned slowly, its engines straining as it moved toward the planet. The Zeraxian ship followed, firing repeatedly. Each hit shook the ancient vessel, but the old ship kept moving. "What are you planning, Captain?" Chen asked. "Modern ships rely on computer targeting and predictive systems," Donovan replied. "Let's see how they handle something less predictable." She turned to the helm officer. "When I give the word, cut all power except life support and artificial gravity. Make it look like they've disabled us." The crew exchanged glances, but no one questioned the order. The Zeraxian ship was closing rapidly, still firing. The Dauntless shuddered with each impact. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported a crewman. "Automatic repair systems responding." Morgan looked up in surprise. "The repair drones are working. Those haven't been used in decades." "This old girl still has some tricks," Donovan said. "Status of the mass accelerator." 7 minutes, Morgan promised. Donovan watched the tactical display. The Zeraxian ship was almost in position. "Helm, cut power." The lights on the bridge dimmed as the ship's engines went silent. The Dauntless began to drift, appearing dead in space. On the screens, they watched the Zeraxian ship slow its approach, clearly cautious despite its superior firepower. "They're scanning us," Chen said quietly. Donovan nodded. "Let them think they've won. Morgan, get to that mass accelerator. The moment it's ready, I want to fire." As Morgan hurried off the bridge, Donovan watched the Zeraxian ship draw closer, circling like a predator around wounded prey. "High Commander Vexilor is hailing us again," Rodriguez reported. Donovan straightened. "Let's hear what he has to say about our ancient ship now." Vexilor's face filled the screen, his blue features pulled into what might have been a smile. Behind him, his crew worked at stations far more advanced than those on the Dauntless. "Captain Donovan," Vexilor said smoothly, "it seems your ancient vessel couldn't withstand even our warning shots. How disappointing." Donovan kept her face neutral. "We've suffered some damage." "Indeed. I can see that your power systems are failing. Allow me to make you an offer. Surrender your vessel, and I will spare your crew. They can join the other humans from the colony as our workers." From a side console, Chen signaled to Donovan. The message on his screen read, "Mass, accelerator at 95% power." "That's generous of you, Commander," Donovan said, stalling for time. "But I'm curious, why attack these colonies? What have they done to you?" Vexilor waved a hand dismissively. "Nothing. They simply have resources we need, and your Space Force is too busy with politics to defend its outer territories properly." He leaned closer to the screen. "Did you know that some of your own officials have been paid to look the other way? We've been raiding these colonies for months." Chen's eyes widened as he checked his console again. He typed quickly, searching records. "He's right," he whispered to Donovan. Reports of attacks were filed but never escalated. Donovan felt cold anger rising inside her. "And you think that makes these people fair game?" "I think," Vexilor said, "that those who cannot defend what they have do not deserve to keep it. You have 1 minute to surrender, Captain, or we will destroy what remains of your ship." The screen went dark. Donovan turned to her crew. "Status of the mass accelerator." "Ready to fire," came Morgan's voice over the comm. "But we only have enough power for 1 shot before we need to recharge. Then we make it count." Donovan checked the tactical display. "Their ship is holding position about 4 kilometers off our port side. Perfect target." Chen looked up from his analysis. "Captain, I've been studying their ship. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, modern threats, but the mass accelerator fires a solid tungsten projectile. Their shields might not be calibrated for that kind of kinetic impact." Donovan nodded. "A very old trick that might just work against very new defenses." She turned to the weapons officer, a young cadet who looked nervous but determined. "Target their propulsion systems. We want to disable, not destroy if possible." "Aye, Captain," the cadet responded, hands flying over the targeting controls. "All hands, prepare for reactivation of all systems on my mark," Donovan announced shipwide. "We'll only get 1 chance at this." The crew tensed as the seconds ticked by. On the view screen, the Zeraxian ship hovered, its sleek form gleaming in the light of New Horizons' sun. "Their minute is up," Chen said quietly. Donovan nodded. "They expect us to surrender or die. Let's show them a third option." She stood up. "Mark." Power surged back through the Dauntless. Lights blazed to full brightness, engines roared to life, and deep within the ship, the ancient mass accelerator, a massive electromagnetic rail system, powered up completely. "Fire," Donovan ordered. The entire ship shook as the mass accelerator launched its projectile, a solid tungsten rod 2 meters long and 20 centimeters wide. It crossed the space between the ships in less than a second, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The Zeraxian ship had no time to react. The projectile struck its propulsion section, passing through shields calibrated for energy weapons as if they weren't there. The kinetic energy released on impact was catastrophic. The Zeraxian ship didn't explode dramatically. Instead, it simply came apart, breaking into large pieces that tumbled away from each other in the silence of space. The bridge crew of the Dauntless stared in shock. Direct hit, the weapons officer reported unnecessarily. I didn't. Donovan started, then cleared her throat. I didn't mean to destroy them completely. Morgan's voice came over the comm, sounding equally surprised. The mass accelerator was more powerful than I calculated. These old systems were built to hit hard. Chen checked his sensors. Captain, the other Zeraxian ships are breaking orbit around New Horizon. They're heading this way. Donovan took a deep forged in fire. How long until the mass accelerator can fire again? Donovan asked, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing 5 Zeraxian warships rapidly approaching. 25 minutes minimum, Morgan replied. The power systems need time to recharge. We don't have 25 minutes, Chen warned. 5 Zeraxian ships incoming. ETA 12 minutes. The communications officer called out, Governor Ellis is hailing us from the surface. Ellis appeared on screen, his face showing a mix of shock and hope. Captain Donovan, one of the Zeraxian ships just disintegrated. What happened? We happened, Donovan said simply. But we've got more company coming. How are your people doing down there? We've taken heavy damage to the main settlement, but most civilians made it to the underground shelters. If you can keep the Zeraxians busy, we might be able to get some of our ground defenses back online. We'll do what we can, Donovan promised. Donovan out. As the communication ended, Donovan turned to Chen. Options. He studied the tactical display grimly. The mass accelerator is our best weapon, but it's not ready. Our point defense systems won't do much against their warships. We could try to run, but we'd never outpace those modern ships. Donovan nodded thoughtfully. We might not outrun them, but we could outthink them. She moved to the center of the bridge. Morgan, are those repair drones still functioning? Yes, Captain. Old but operational. Good. I need you to send them to the outer hull sections. Have them remove the cosmetic plates covering our old weapon ports. All of them. Morgan sounded confused over the comm. But most of those weapons don't work anymore. The Zeraxians don't know that, Donovan replied. And I have another idea. Chen, what can you tell me about how the Zeraxians communicate with each other? Chen checked his readings. Standard subspace frequencies, but with heavy encryption. Can we jam those frequencies? He thought for a moment. Not with our modern systems, but the Dauntless has old-style broadband jammers. They're not selective like modern jammers. They just flood all frequencies with noise. Perfect, Donovan said. Morgan, get those jammers online too. As the crew hurried to carry out her orders, Donovan watched the approaching Zeraxian ships on the tactical display. They were moving in a perfect formation, coordinating their approach with precision. They rely too much on their technology, she murmured. Time to introduce some chaos. The repair drones worked quickly, removing plates to expose weapon ports all around the Dauntless's hull. Many contained non-functional or disconnected weapons, but from the outside, they looked threatening enough. Jammers ready, Chen reported. Activate them, Donovan ordered, and bring us about. Head straight for the lid ship. The Dauntless turned, its engines pushing the massive old vessel forward with surprising speed. On the view screen, the 5 Zeraxian ships suddenly broke their perfect formation, their movements becoming erratic. The jammers are working, Chen said with satisfaction. They can't communicate with each other. Donovan allowed herself a small smile. Good. Let's see how they handle things when they have to think for themselves. The old battleship accelerated toward the enemy, its exposed weapon ports looking like the bared teeth of a predator from another age. The Zeraxian ships scattered, clearly confused by the sudden aggression from a vessel they had considered harmless. They're trying to regroup, Chen said, watching the tactical display, but our jammers are keeping them from coordinating their attacks. Donovan nodded. Each commander has to make decisions alone now. Let's see how good they are at improvising. She turned to the helm officer. "Take us into New Horizons' upper atmosphere. Skin the edge." "The atmosphere, Captain?" the young officer asked, surprised. "The Dauntless isn't designed for atmospheric operations." "No, but neither are those Ziraxian ships," Donovan replied. "And the Dauntless was built with a thicker hull than any modern vessel. We can take the heat." The massive ship descended toward New Horizon, its old hull beginning to glow red as it entered the upper atmosphere. The Ziraxian ships followed cautiously, keeping their distance. Their firing, Chen reported as energy beams, lanced out from two of the pursuing vessels. The Dauntless shuddered as the beams struck its rear shields. "Shields down to 30%, Rodriguez reported. "Maintain course," Donovan ordered. "Morgan, what's the status of our thermal shielding?" "Holding, but it wasn't designed for this kind of stress," Morgan replied. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before we start seeing structural damage." "We won't need 10 minutes, Donovan assured her. "Governor Ellis, are you receiving us?" Ellis's face appeared on a side screen. "We're here, Captain. What do you need?" "Do you still have control of the automated weather stations in the upper atmosphere?" Ellis looked surprised but nodded. "Yes, they're on a separate network from our main systems. The Ziraxians haven't bothered with them." "Good. I need you to activate the emergency discharge protocols in all stations in grid sections 14 through 23. Understanding dawned on Ellis's face. "The lightning harvesters." "That's brilliant. Give us 2 minutes." As the communication ended, Chen looked at Donovan questioningly. "Lightning harvesters. New Horizon has violent electrical storms in its upper atmosphere," Donovan explained. "They built a network of harvesting stations to capture the energy. Those stations can also be used to release built-up electrical charge in a controlled manner. Or an uncontrolled one," Chen said, catching on. "Exactly," Donovan smiled. "Helm, bring us into grid section 18 and prepare to execute a full reverse on my mark." The Dauntless plunged deeper into the atmosphere, its hull now glowing bright orange from the friction. Behind it, 3 of the Ziraxian ships had formed a pursuit line while the other 2 had split off, trying to flank them. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "Governor Ellis says they're ready. Tell them to stand by," Donovan ordered. She watched the tactical display carefully, monitoring the positions of the pursuing ships. Just a little closer. The 3 Ziraxian ships in pursuit were now directly behind the Dauntless, closing the gap. "Now," Donovan commanded. "Ellis, activate the discharge." "Helm, full reverse." The Dauntless's engines screamed as they suddenly switched direction, slowing the massive ship's descent. At the same time, dozens of weather stations across the upper atmosphere released their stored electrical energy. The sky around them erupted with massive lightning bolts, arcing between the stations and creating a web of electrical energy. The Ziraxian ships, caught by surprise, flew directly into the electrical storm. Their advanced shields, designed to stop physical projectiles and energy weapons, provided little protection against the raw electrical power of a planetary storm. Lightning struck the 3 pursuing ships repeatedly, overloading their systems. One Ziraxian vessel's engines failed completely, sending it tumbling deeper into the atmosphere, where the increasing pressure began crushing its hull. The other 2 managed to maintain control but were clearly damaged, their sleek hulls now marred by scorch marks. "It worked," Chen exclaimed. 2 ships heavily damaged, 1 going down. "Don't celebrate yet," Donovan cautioned. "We still have 2 more to deal with, and they're coming around for another attack." The remaining Ziraxian ships had regrouped and were now approaching from opposite sides, attempting to catch the Dauntless in a crossfire. "Captain," Morgan's voice came over the comm. "The mass accelerator is at 60% power. We need another 10 minutes before we can fire." "We may not have 10 minutes," Donovan replied. "What about our conventional missile tubes? Are any of them operational?" "We have 4 tubes that still work, but the missiles were removed during decommissioning," Morgan answered. Donovan thought quickly. What about the ship's structural maintenance drones? The heavy-duty ones used for external repairs. There are 12 still active, Morgan confirmed. But they're not weapons. They're about to become them, Donovan said. Program them to launch from the missile tubes and target the Ziraxian ship's sensor arrays. Attach as much metal debris as they can carry. Improvised kinetic weapons, Morgan said, understanding. It won't do much damage, but we don't need to destroy them, Donovan interrupted. We just need to blind them temporarily. As Morgan hurried to reprogram the maintenance drones, the two remaining Ziraxian ships opened fire. The Dauntless rocked as energy beams struck it from both sides. Shields failing, Rodriguez reported. Hull breaches on decks 2 and 6. Reroute emergency power to stabilize the shields, Donovan ordered. Helm, take us back up, out of the atmosphere. The Dauntless began its ascent, still under heavy fire from the Ziraxian vessels. Maintenance drones reprogrammed and loaded, Morgan reported. Ready to launch. Fire, Donovan ordered. 4 missile tubes on the Dauntless's hull opened, each launching a maintenance drone loaded with scrap metal. The improvised projectiles weren't fast by military standards, but they were unexpected. The Ziraxian ships, focused on their energy weapons, didn't register the small objects until they were too close to intercept. The drones slammed into the sensor arrays of both ships, exploding on impact and scattering metal fragments across their delicate equipment. The effect was immediate. Both ships' fire became erratic, their beams missing the Dauntless by wide margins. Direct hits on both ships' sensor arrays, Chen reported. Their targeting systems are compromised. Morgan, status of the mass accelerator, Donovan demanded. 80% and rising. 7 more minutes. Their sensors won't stay down that long, Donovan muttered. She studied the tactical display, looking for another advantage. What about the colony's orbital platforms? The ones the Ziraxians destroyed. Chen checked his readings. The platforms themselves are gone, but there's still a significant debris field in orbit. How close is the nearest concentration of debris to our position? About 30,000 kilometers, near the second moon. Donovan nodded decisively. Helm, set course for the debris field, maximum speed. The Dauntless turned and accelerated away from the planet. Behind them, the 2 damaged Ziraxian ships and the 2 that had survived the electrical storm gave chase, though their formation was ragged and uncoordinated thanks to the continuing effects of the jammers. They're gaining on us, Chen warned as the Dauntless raced toward the debris field. Their engines are simply faster than ours. They don't need to be faster, Donovan said calmly. They just need to be predictable. As they approached the debris field, the scattered remains of New Horizons' defensive platforms, Donovan ordered the ship to reduce speed. Cut the jammers, she commanded. Chen looked at her in surprise. Captain, cut them, she repeated, and open a channel to the Ziraxian ships. As the jammers went offline, Rodriguez established communication with the pursuing vessels. Vexler's second-in-command appeared on screen, his blue features twisted with rage. Human, he snarled, you have destroyed our flagship and damaged our fleet. There will be no mercy for your colony now. That's unfortunate, Donovan replied evenly, because I was about to offer you the chance to surrender. The Ziraxian commander laughed harshly. Surrender? Your ancient vessel is barely functional. Our sensors show your weapons are depleted, and your shields are failing. You have no more tricks left. Don't I? Donovan asked. Take a closer look at where we are. The Dauntless had come to a stop at the edge of the debris field. Thousands of pieces of destroyed orbital platforms floated silently in space around them. Do you know what these are? Donovan asked. The remains of New Horizons' defensive platforms, the same platforms that were designed to destroy incoming meteorites by fragmenting them with precision explosives. Understanding dawned on the Ziraxian commander's face. You wouldn't. Morgan, Donovan said, cutting off the communication. Are the point defense lasers still operational? Yes, Captain. Low power, but functional. Target the largest debris pieces surrounding the Xeraxian ship's approach vector. Fire on my mark. The 4 Xeraxian vessels were now closing rapidly, their weapons charging. Mass accelerator at 95%, Morgan reported. Hold it in reserve, Donovan ordered.